Now the fun begins. 18-234, an appeal of notice, an order of repair or abate dated April 12th related to 241 Main Street. APN 002-234-031-0000. I'm going to explain how this process is going to work because there'll be a lot of excitement. We're going to receive a report from the Assistant City Attorney, Michael Multipassi, for 10 minutes, and there'll be a timer on that. And then we'll receive a report on the appeal from Mr. Lane's side, and he will be allowed 10 minutes. And then we're going to let Mr. Multipassi rebut for 3 minutes, and we're going to allow Mr. Lane's group to rebut for 3 minutes. And then we're going to go to council members, and listen up, council members. We're going to turn the timer on. You have 5 minutes for questioning, not a minute longer. If you haven't got your questions when we get to you, shame on you, we're moving on. Then we will open it up to public for a public hearing, and then the council members will make comments, and then we'll have to decide what action we take. Is there anyone in the audience that does not understand that? Thank you very much. Michael, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to discuss the appeal of the notice and order to repair or abate. It's dated April 12, 2018, and it's related to the real property known as 241 Main Street. There's a couple of things we need to get straight right off the bat. The council today is sitting as an appeals board. That's pursuant to the California Building Code and the Health and Safety Code. The council is sitting as an appeals board, and it's still bound by the normal rules of order. What does that mean? It means it may only adjudicate the issues properly placed before it on its agenda. The only issue placed before the council on the agenda today is Appellant's appeal. Here you have a copy of Appellant's appeal. You'll notice the only thing that Appellant is appealing is the April 12, 2018 order. The April 12, 2018 order, a portion of which is presented for you on the screen, does not designate the property as a URM property. When I'm talking about URM properties, I'm talking about properties that have one bearing wall that is constructed of masonry that's not reinforced by steel. We'll get a little bit more into what this means later. The important part for this point of order is that the designation does not take place in this order. Rather, this order specifically addresses a previous 2013 compliance order, which did designate the property as a URM property. This is a certificate of unreinforced masonry. You can see that this was filed in the line of title and recorded by the county clerk on May 1st, 2013. This is a document that designates a property for all purposes, a property constructed of unreinforced masonry. Any appeal of this order would have had to take place 20 days after this was issued. That means the final date to appeal this designation was May 21st, 2013. This certificate was based on a compliance order. You have the compliance order in front of you. This order is dated April 30th, 2014. This specifically notifies Appellant, Entertainment Lane Incorporated, and Mr. Anthony Lane that the property is constructed of a URM wall on which roof trusses bear. It gives a specific deadline of February 6, 2018, for which retrofit or demolition of the property must be completed. It also specifically references the document that we looked at just a moment ago, the document that was recorded in the line of title for the property for all purposes. What does that mean? It means that this was final in 2013. This was final on May 21st of 2013. The only thing before this council is whether this February 6, 2018 compliance date is the date by which the property needs to be retrofit or demolished, or whether that date can be extended to June 11th, 2018 by the compliance order that is before you. Granting the appeal is tantamount to instructing the building official and the senior code enforcement official that the deadline to retrofit or demolish the property should return to February 6, 2018. This would be a direction from this council sitting as a Board of Appeals that they should immediately begin the abatement process. Denying the appeal is the only means the council has of preserving the June 11, 2018 compliance date, thereby avoiding the immediate initiation of the abatement process. Again, there's just no other issue that's subject to this appeal. Nonetheless, I know everybody's curious about this issue of the URM. I started to talk about URM. It's an unreinforced masonry wall. What we're looking at here is a wall that has bearing roof trusses on it. The issue is when a roof truss bears on a wall that is made of masonry, not reinforced by steel, that wall faces some lateral loads, which is what it would face in a seismic event. Bricks tend to topple. There's no question that the theater has URM elements and that several roof trusses are abutting the URM elements. We've got pictures of that up here. When those elements were identified, the building was noticed under the URM ordinance. It was appropriately noticed under the URM ordinance. This is Ordinance 2106. The specific purpose of this ordinance is to promote public safety. We don't want that roof to fall in a seismic event. In case anyone was wondering where the 5-year compliance deadline came from, we're still in Ordinance 2106. It's a Type 2 building because of its occupancy type. The deadline in column 6 to complete construction or demolition is 5 years. What does compliance mean with the URM ordinance? Compliance means that once the property owner is notified, he must undertake a structural analysis of the property. That structural analysis must be undertaken by a certified engineer or architect. It has to be licensed, it has to be stamped. If that structural analysis says that no retrofit is needed, then no retrofit is needed. The city has an analysis that has calculations set forth in this ordinance that's stamped by an engineer or architect that says it doesn't need a retrofit. If the structural analysis says it needs a retrofit, then the owner has 5 years to retrofit. If he doesn't retrofit in that 5 years, he's obligated to demolish the building. Appellant applied for a permit for a retrofit. He has never given the city a structural analysis. He has given the city plans for a retrofit. These plans were, and I should be wearing glasses, applied for on June 13th, 2013. These plans were recently approved and issued on April 25th, 2018. It's extremely important that his engineer signed and stamped plans for this structural retrofit. It indicates to the city that his engineer, Michael J. Martin, believes that a structural retrofit is necessary. It's also important because Michael J. Martin stamps these plans and signs these plans. Because you received some documents where Michael J. Martin writes some things down. He doesn't stamp those things he writes. He doesn't put his license on the line. What he'll put his license on the line for is a structural retrofit. The fact that there's an engineer who says a structural retrofit is necessary is a good indication that there is a necessary structural retrofit. It's a good indication that there are URM elements, that those URM elements would not withstand a seismic event, and that it poses a safety to the public, to the building around, and to the buildings around it. Appellant's going to make some arguments that no structural retrofit is necessary because there was something called a Ruth Goins and Curtis report. This is a report that was done in 1976. It was paid for by the redevelopment agency. It is not a city document. It is not a document that binds the city in any way. Nonetheless, there are some important factors about this document and why it's not probative to the question of URM. First, the document itself, and these are all excerpts from the document, purports to be a preliminary investigation. The document says that to positively establish any of these elements, you need a full-fledged investigation. The pictures that I showed you earlier of the trusses abutting the masonry wall, that all takes place in a crawl space. If you're doing a preliminary report and you don't go in a crawl space, there's a good chance you miss those things. The second reason the report's not probative is the report took place in 1976. It used 1973 building code. He's not being cited under the 1973 building code. He's being cited under the 1990 building code. There's a good chance that a building that passed in 1973, I will then simply conclude by saying this report is not stamped.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I think it was 10 minutes was 10 minutes is what you had said before.
And the recommendation is that council deny the appeal.
I can hear you pretty good, but my
Go ahead.
I can hear you pretty good, but my hearing aid went on the blink. I don't have it, but so it might take might have to speak a bit louder. On April 12th, the Fox Theater was shut down because of 4 issues: the stage, electrical, the sprinklers, and the URM issues. The stage and the sprinklers have been cleared. The sprinklers and the electrical have been cleared. The stage is nearly there. We're not objecting to that. By definition, they'll be okay or it won't open. They have to be cleared by definition or we won't open. We're also not asking the city council to sit as lay engineers and make a new decision. And we're not asking them to tell Joe DeSante what to say or for him to follow anything. We're just asking that he make a new decision, and the new decision might not change anything. He might make the new decision and say it's a URM and do it by looking at a structural analysis that will give the load, which will tell, is there any load on the wall? Is there any load on the wall at all? And it will tell things like the load path, and it will be decisive. But then we say, Mr. DeSante, you look at it, and you make a decision. We just want you to consider it. He might say, it says the loads are not there, it says that, but you know what? I'm simply going to decide that it's still a unreinforced masonry building. Fine. Now, why should he get it and why should the city get it? Because in 2007, Anthony Lane bought the Fox Theater from the Martin family. He had with him Michael Martin, when he went, the Martin family, not related to Michael Martin. He had Michael Martin and himself and the city officials meet. They told him this is not an unreinforced masonry building. There's no retrofit and no earthquake issues. That's a lot of money. And based on that, he bought the building. There's only one thing that they could have been looking at to tell him that, and that's the Ruth and Goings report. The Ruth and Goings report, according to Alan Stump, head of the redevelopment agency, is what? 30 to 100. All the old buildings are based on the Ruth and Goings report, and it was commissioned by the city, or actually the redevelopment, at the request of the city to list the buildings. Now, yes, an official can then make you get a structural analysis every time he goes by and says, oh, I'm a little worried about your building. Do it. He could do it again and again. but, he should have a bit of a reason. And Mr. DeSanti had no reason. He has zero paperwork. At the time he did it, he wrote nothing. He didn't write his thoughts. He didn't analyze anything. He didn't do anything. And the truth is, there's a very strong wooden wall. Maybe they wouldn't approve a wooden wall today to build a building, but it's grandfathered in. It was good when it was put in, and so it was good on those codes, and it's good today. Otherwise, every old building would be redone every few years. And then what happens is the truss goes over and goes in on the brick wall, but it's to keep out the rain. The people who did the Ruth and Goings report didn't even mention the loads. They didn't see it. They put in the report. They put in the very report, no masonry structures. And we got the report. And the cover sheet just said the report had nothing on it. But it was right, no masonry, it was good. But we didn't know how good it was. We got it from the city attorney's office. Nothing on it. When we found the real report, we found out not only did it say no masonry structures, it was even better. The conclusion was that not URM. The very thing that was most important was gone. It was whited out. Not some little thing in the middle of the report about a brace or anything. The very issue. Why did that happen? I'm not going to even conjecture, but I'm going to say we've asked, and nobody will tell us why that happened. Now, when they cited the building the first time, they gave him a notice, but they didn't tell him that there was a Ruth and Goings report. They didn't say, here is your citation. Oh, by the way, there's a Ruth and Goings report that tells you you're okay. And so he didn't know he had Lane didn't know he had a right to appeal, and that, under the law, Teague versus Nature, 15 Cal App 4, 1351, 1356, excuses him from his appeal. All this incredibly hyper-technical stuff that you're stuck. You checkmate. We have to tear it down because you didn't appeal, and so we got you. As Judge Blumenstiel told me once in Marin County when I tried to say the same thing to her, we don't play gotcha in this court. And so we're just saying, don't tear down a beautiful building. Don't tear it down because of this hyper-technical. What did the Supreme Court say about this kind of legal analysis? It's not allowed. Supreme Court says skillful manipulation of procedural rules whose conclusion produces an absurdity is not allowed to subvert justice. What about, and that's Kotiakis versus U.S., 328 U.S. 750, 762. And what about the city council's hands being tied? He's wrong. The case of improved Sorrento access versus San Diego, 118 Cal App 4, 808, page 18. Moreover, to the extent that the deputy city attorney had previously opined that the road could not be found to be unnecessary under applicable code sections, the opinion is not binding on the city council, not binding on this court. So this magic, this hyper-technicality that really the city attorney's office seems to love, and it's always a calculus problem, and now we've figured it out, and you guys have to tear down your Fox Theater because everyone's hands are bound. It's truly infuriating and nonsense. Everything I say, every fact I say, I guarantee they can't rebut. If they can't come up and say it, they've never reclassified another building and changed the Ruth and Goings report in the city. Again, they knew about it and they didn't tell him. There's not the slightest paperwork that they did it. And I don't know if Mr. Mutalapasi is going to go into his ghost ship warehouse speech, but it's absolutely untrue. The reason is, by definition, we don't want to open. We can't open unless we get a fire clearance. The other reason is, in this city, especially if the fire marshals actually knows you, I mean, you could open up a ghost ship warehouse in one night, but if the fire marshals actually knows you, there's no ghost ship warehouse. And so that's what's the difference between Oakland. Oakland, the fire marshal wasn't on top of things. there's no ghost ship warehouse issue when the fire marshal in this city, who is on top of things and knows you, it's just not going to happen. It's made up. So here's a man, he buys the building, and then what's the attitude of the city? Oh, yeah, we told you that, but no, man, we're tearing you down. We're tearing you down. Your building's all good and everything. No, oh, we made a mistake. Oh, we told you the wrong thing. Well, the fact is, they didn't make a mistake. They did the right thing under the building code, and then after that, they did something they've done to no other building in the city, with no paperwork, with no formality, hiding the Ruth and Goings report. They get up and they change it. Now, these engineers will tell you that the people on the Ruth and Goings report, they know what a brick wall looks like. They know what a truss looks like. Obviously, they thought about loads, no mention of the loads. When the building next door, the central building, was retrofitted and that wall was fixed, well, now that wall we're talking about, the very wall and the same very trusses were in their report. And they were just like the Ruth and Goings report. They were talking about a URM issue. They were deciding exactly, is this a URM wall? And so when they did it, they have to look at the loads. Not a mention of any load from the Fox Theater. They're looking at the wall. Yeah, it's going to load from the central building. Does it have a load from the Fox Theater? Well, it's got this truss touching it to keep out the rain. And so if that added any weight, they'd have to put it in. So what they're saying is two formal reports on the same wall, on the same trusses, made a huge fundamental mistake. Well, they saw the wall. It's a brick wall. They saw the trusses. Now, and the engineers will tell you the support on the Fox Theater is a very big, super strong sort of trestle wooden wall, and that's right under it. That's the support. The other ones go over there. Again, if they had thought that it had anything to do with it, they would have committed like architectural
10 minutes are up.
malpractice. If they
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Thank you.
You'll be coming back for your 3-minute.
Excuse me. Okay. I actually did finish what I had to say.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, sir. No, he has 3 minutes
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Then,
Just a couple of points here. We're talking about the Ruth and Goings report. It doesn't have any calculations. It doesn't have calculations because it's a preliminary report. It's also not stamped and signed or attributed to any architect or engineer. For all we know, this was a report done by a high school student working at an engineering firm. As far as who should pay for a structural engineer, you're all well aware that the city cannot gift public funds. The city did make a loan of $10,000. The city does not know what happened to that $10,000. Goodness knows what happened to that $10,000. We do know it was not used for a structural analysis. As far as the technical stuff for the appeals go, he didn't notice that he wanted to appeal the 2013 order. Whereas the council may not be bound by everything, it is bound by what is noticed, and what is noticed is an appeal of the 2018 order. Even if he's right about that, about being able to appeal the 2013 order, he has not done it here. The other issue is, he had this Ruth and Goings report, Mr. Lane. After he got this Public Records Act request in 2015. Mr. Callahan responded to the Public Records Act in 2015, and the documents were paid for in 2015. Even if the city sat on giving him that report, which is not a city report, which the city was not obligated to give him, he had it in 2015. He stuck his head in the sand and ignored his right to appeal for 3 years rather than the 20 days offered by the code. With that, I'll cede the rest of my time for questions after Mr. Smith has a chance to rebut.
you're up, Mr. Lane.
I always hate being cut short.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I'm going to have Angel, if it's okay, to hand you guys some papers, because instead of rebutting all these comments that Mr. Maltapassi and city staff, I just want to get to one point. And that one point is we'll just back up and we'll make it very clear and very simple, because I'm always rushed, and you're talking a $4 million building, my family and my life at stake, and hopefully you give me the respect to explain what I'm going to say. I don't want to talk about the wall. I don't want to talk about nothing. We're going to go back to March 6, 2013. They cited me in 2012. Angel, can you please handle it? Okay, so let's start on the first one. March 6, 2013, I was given a notice to order, and he gave me 30 days to do the plans and 72 days to fix the wall. I went to Mr. Joseph DeSante, and I said to him, there should be a standard for URM. He said there is. So on the next page, item 2, on April the 15th, oh, sorry. You need to follow along. I'm just going to get to one point. So now on item 2, back to item 1, they gave me 30 days for the plan, 72 days to fix $1 million wall. On April the 15th, I went to Joseph DeSante in the morning, and he gave me this letter. And the letter said to be building on the 1997 Uniform Code requirements that the properties of Main Street were required to meet. So I followed everyone else like the downtown. In front of you is the code, and I just want you to put item 3 aside. Going to item 4, this was April 30th, 15 days later, that Joseph DeSante sent the letter out again with the notice of compliance and changed the dates. And as you can see, all the dates were changed from doing the plans, which were already complete, and that's what I used that $10,000 for, because I didn't have the money at the time, and gave me a date of February 6, 2018, which is actually 5 years, okay? If you go to the code, item 3, and flip to page 2, highlighted area, appendix 1, it says if there is any major renovations or structural renovations, then the code of URM would not apply. And we didn't do any structural renovations to the theater. Next situation is below it. If an engineer comes up with a report, then that will go away again. And we have the URM report from Ruth and Goins, which is a qualified report. I'm not going to get into it, and also the statement of my engineer. Going to page 3, they acknowledge an A1G and A1H. So if you flip to the very end, you could see that the table A1H says 5.5 years to complete the work. Is everyone with me? I'm sorry, I'm rushing. Okay, now let's go to item 5. Item 5, when in front of the City Council on August 15th, 1995, I'm sorry, this is very important, and at this hearing with all City Council, if you flip to page 4, it says,
thank you, Mr. Lane.
This is very important. Salinas State Code is amended by deleting A1H and replacing it with the revised A1H. If you go to A1H, which is page 5, it gives me 10 years to fix the wall. So at least, if they want to use the initial one that he put up on the screen, it's 5 years, 6 months. So truly, I have October 30th, 2018. Look, my life is on the line.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. The process was outlined ahead of this hearing, so please respect the timing restrictions.
So I hope you review the paperwork. I am given more time, and that's all I'm asking for.
I ask the ladies and gentlemen to hold that down, and so the council members can start asking questions. If you would like a decision tonight, it would be appreciated if you'd be respectful to us. Your time's up. The council is going to ask questions.
I just want to say one thing. If this is the situation I'm put in. Let's not take a lot of time. It's very simple. I would like to take, if the City Council can't vote to extend it another 6 months, then I want to retract the appeal, because I'm not going to have the building knocked down.
Thank you, sir.
Who will answer? How will we answer questions?
The council members will ask questions of each of you separately.
From here or standing here?
Wherever you'd like to be. We'll start with, who wants to be first?
I'll stand here.
Steve, you're up. 5 minutes starting now.
Wait, before we get to that, I just want to ask, the questions can be asked of Mr. Maltapassi or Lane, anybody.
Anybody.
Okay, so I'm going to take my 5 minutes and give
Start it on.
Mr. Lane and his attorney to better explain with more ease what you just
Okay, so let me. What I'm saying is thank you. Thank you, Councilman McShane. What I'm saying
I'm out here. Councilmember McShane,
Please repeat.
can I finish? It was directly put out, 5 minutes of questions, not for you to give your time away. Questions. Ask questions, and then you can get your answers.
Got it. Mr. Lane, can you please repeat the entire segment that you just went through with your document that you handed out so I can better understand?
Yes. So what I was saying, Councilman, was, and I'm not going to go through all of it. We'll just go to the letter of, which would be item 3. I apologize. Hang on. Item 3 was a letter, a notice to order that was sent to me April 30th, 2013. This is item 4, I apologize. It was a letter sent to me April 30th, 2013. This is what staff put up on the screen for you, given a date of February 6, 2018. All I'm saying is that date is incorrect. From April 30th to April 30th, 2018 is 5 years. Based on this code, I'm given 5 years, 6 months if I get an extension, which I did. But it also goes on further that he's misquoting the code, the 1997 building code, because it was adjusted by the report of the City Council on August 15th, 1995, where they put out the new A1H, and he was quoting the A1G, which came before this, and it states that all the type 2 buildings, which that I am, got an extension till the year 2000. The reason why they put the year 2000 is because if you go to the final sheet that I gave you, which is the URM list, which I'm still not on that, and even though that they cited me on the city level, I'm still not on the state. I called the state. I'm still on the URM list. But if you look at the URM list, down at the bottom, there's a list of extensions. So not to make it so complicated on City Council and people, they just gave the year over there of 2000, which was an extension of 10 years, 8 months. So if you add up all the total extensions of all the time that the 1997 building code went in front of the City Council, they extended it because I guess it was hard times then, just like it is now. And they gave the building owners from 1990 when they were cited, 89, 90 when the earthquake, to the year 2000 to fix the building. So all I'm asking is to be treated exactly like the other buildings based on the 1997 building code. And if you go back to item 2, it states from Mr. Joe DeSanti that the applicable design standards would be the 1997 Uniform Code for Building Conservation. This is the same code requirement that other properties on Main Street were required to meet. So all I'm asking is to be treated fairly like all the other buildings, and I will comply. If there's disputes in court, we'll worry about the courts. Right now, I'm just worried about being given the luxury of all the other building owners in Salinas, the right quote of the code, which is the 10 years, 8 months. If Maltapasi or the staff doesn't want to give me that, at least give me the initial one, which was approved in 1991, which gave me 5 years, 6 months. But again, if you go to item 3 and go to page 4, okay, in this code at that time when they gave you the 5.5 years, it says structural alterations or building demolitions set forth in table number A1H shall be extended 1 year. So actually, if we don't go to the 1995 one because the city doesn't want the staff doesn't want to acknowledge that, then I'm okay with this one. Give me till October 30th, 2019, and I will complete the wall. And I've actually pulled the permit a few days ago, and we already started breaking concrete yesterday morning. So even though I feel I don't have to do it, I'm going to spend the $200,000 and do it. But closing the theater and depriving me of revenues, because the other items are taken care of, to deprive me of revenues is unconstitutional if we're following the city code. So I'm just asking to be treated completely fairly like all the other buildings. That's all I'm asking. And I hope I was clear.
That was good. I'll ask a
deadlines.
follow-up question to staff if I still have time. Is he able to open his doors while completing the structural retrofit work? I don't know who would answer that. Is that building permitting staff? Or
Can I answer that?
I don't know.
Well, let's Mr. Multipasi.
Yeah, that'd be
Like to
great.
answer it? Please answer.
I'll answer it.
Mr. Multipasi, can you answer that?
First, I'm going to say, Mr. Multipasi says if the city council grants our request to take the URM off the thing, whoa, his magic law, his calculus means he'll tear it down right away. That's what he says. He'll tear it down
Okay, well,
right away.
let me ask him.
I know, okay.
Time.
Okay.
Go ahead to the next council member. Councilmember Villegas, do you have any questions?
Am I done here already? As far as the time frame, now, Mr. Multipasi, while that 5 years was going on, was Mr. Lane able to have his doors open during that time frame?
He was, because
Okay.
according to the code, he was in
Alrighty.
compliance.
If
It
he-
wasn't until the 5 years expired that he was out of compliance.
Okay. If he's granted an extension, okay, under those circumstances, since we allowed him to have his doors open during that 5 years, would it be copacetic to make sure that his doors are open for that year while he's...
Well, so there is no issue before the council that could grant him an extension, nor has he applied for an extension. There are mandatory requirements for applying for the 6-month extension. Mr. Lane twisted some of the charts that he gave you. The 5-year extension, as written in the code, has mandatory requirements. There were certain benchmarks that he was supposed to meet during that 5-year process to be granted that extra 6-month extension. Mr. Lane did not meet a single one of those benchmarks. As he stated, he did not pull the permit until April 25th, excuse me, April 25th, 2015, which was well after the deadline had expired. As far as the other chart he gave you goes, I think if you look closely at it, it gives the requirement as not being 10 years, but being all retrofits finished by the year 2000. That was a misstatement of the ordinance that's before you. The answer is the building has been declared unfit for occupancy. Whether it can be declared fit for occupancy depends on whether it is up to all the standards of the codes, and that is up to staff, that is up to the code enforcement, that is up to the fire marshal, and that is up to the building official.
Okay. Who hired Mr. Martin to do the 2013 structural analysis?
Mr. Lane did.
Okay. And
Well, that's a misstatement. There was no 2013 structural analysis. All there was were 2013 plans for a structural retrofit. Those plans were submitted and approved to the city in 2013, but no permit was pulled until April 25th, 2018.
okay.
But I need to add something to that. 2012.
Hang
is
on,
when I
let
was
him
actually
ask the
cited.
question.
No, because it's misinformed.
You gotta let him ask the
2012,
question,
engineer's
sir.
here. He did make a report to Dennis Richardson. He didn't accept the report. And the engineer is here if you have a question for him.
We'll get to your engineer shortly. You have any more
Is
questions?
there, Mr. Lane, do you think the 5-year time frame was fair to retrofit it from 2013?
Well, Councilman, I'm sorry, it's hard to hear your microphones, but
Oh, sorry.
what was the
What
question?
was it? Do you think the 5 years that the city gave you back in 2013 was a fair time frame to get this thing taken care of?
The time frame is unfair because it still doesn't follow the code. He's misinforming you because the code was extended, and I know it gave a timeline of the year 2000, but if you go to the URM list, it gives all the extensions. And with the 5.5 years, okay, with the special treatment of the 6 months, I am given at least another 3 to 4 more years of an extension to fix it. But like I said, I pulled the permit, and I'm doing the work now because I'm actually forced to do that because in retrospect, they gave me the notice to order in 2013, and based on the city code that was changed multiple times, I am given more time, just like the other buildings in Salinas. So I'm just asking for the same that the other buildings got.
Okay, all righty. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Craig, you're up. 5
Thank you.
minutes.
So I have a question for Mr. Multipasi. It's my understanding that we are strictly discussing the appeal for the April 12, 2018 order to repair or abate real property for 241 Main, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The only issue before this council is whether or not the April 12, 2018 order extends the time for Mr. Lane to do the retrofit to June 11th, 2018, or whether the council needs, or whether the council, sitting as the Board of Appeal, wishes for abatement to begin based on the February 6, 2018
Understood.
deadline.
So then granting the appeal that Mr. Lane requested automatically launches into the demolition of the property because
Well-
we would need to abate the property.
It launches into the abatement of the property. There's
Understood.
a process for abatement, whether that results in demolition, whether it results in a receiver.
Okay, I got 5 minutes, so I
Sure.
understand. Okay, so denial of it then would give an extension to June 11th for compliance, correct?
That's correct.
So to Mr. Lane, why the hell would you appeal the April 12th, 2018?
Very good question.
Pardon my language.
Very good question. Thank you, Councilman. It's a very good question. And after I saw the report from Mr. Maltapassi and the staff yesterday evening for the first time at 7 p.m., that's the first thing that came out of my mouth that I told my attorney, was why would I want to go in front of the city council to cut my own foot off? Because what I'm asking is to backtrack to the notice to order that they're quoting. So they're quoting the notice to order of April 2013, which if you follow the code to the T, it gives me more years to get the job done. So if the city council is not going to agree with the code of enforcement that is city code, then I'm going to ask the city council not to give me the appeal.
But that's not what is being addressed today. Today is the appeal for the April 12th, 2018. No, so
if you look at the notice of appeal, which was provided as part of the record, he's asking for the notice in order to abate issued by the City of Salinas and the building official and senior code enforcement officer on April 12th, 2018. I've provided an excerpt and highlighted it here for you. That's the only thing that's agendized. That's the only thing that can get changed. If there was something else that needed to get
So
changed,
there's
it
more
would
to
have
be
needed another
discussed.
notice.
There's more to be discussed, but right now, the issue at hand is the notice to order to repair or abate and the appeal or the denial of the appeal.
That's exactly right.
Okay, understood.
That's truly
So-
not fair, but go ahead.
May I answer the legal question?
Sure.
Because the council's assuming that he's a professor of law, and he's telling you the law, and yes, and so this is how we have to do it. That's not the law. It's based on the notice of appeal being good. There is no question that they talked about it. Everyone talked about it. If they didn't talk about it, deny it. They said, let's send him the notice of abatement in 2013, but let's not tell him about the Ruth and Goings report.
Okay, so I understand
So
all of that, but that is not the issue that we are addressing right now. And I appreciate that, I appreciate the consideration for the law.
If I can finish. So we got a hyper-technicality that this notice of appeal was missed, and so everything following is good. No, it isn't. What's following is void. And so what you all are going to do is you're going to lose the Fox Theater, either because of a hyper-technicality. He's 1 day late, we'll tear it down. Oh, the city council didn't listen to my brilliant calculus, and they obeyed the order, so I'll shut it down. There's another, that's how you're going to lose it. But the other very common way, and for sure you're going to lose the Fox Theater, is he's going to be out of business if he's closed for even another few days.
Okay, I understand your concept. No, you're done talking at this point. I have 5 minutes and I have the floor.
I know, but this is
So,
important. This is his
Mr. Mayor,
whole life.
point of order.
30 seconds.
Point of order, thank you.
You'll all hear.
So I have one last question for you. When you obtained the structural analysis from a structural engineer, can you give me some context as to why why you didn't follow through on that for the 3 years?
Sorry, repeat the question.
Okay, so you came to the city, reclaiming my time. You came to the city and made a request for structural engineer to redo
No,
the wall?
The city actually gave me 30 days to do plans for the theater. It would be shut down. So I borrowed $10,000 and had the engineer drop plans. Within the 30 days, we asked for 90 days. They gave us 40 days to drop the plans. And if I didn't come up with the plans, they were going to tear down the building. I was forced into that.
So, but then you had 3 years to complete the actual plans, correct?
I had actually 5 years. Based on the actual change of code, I had 5 years to come up with the plans.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the consideration.
Councilwoman De La Rosa, you're up. The clock's running.
Yeah.
This is like speed school.
So do you have an engineer right now that's looking at, your own personal engineer that's looking at this wall and everything else in this building to make sure that the building, it's a beautiful building.
Yes.
You have so many people here tonight, the faith community, the businesses, you put on good events. We don't want to see it closed. We want you to succeed. But do you have an engineer that will stamp and say, hey, everything's okay in that building, or what does it need?
I'll call up Michael Martin, who's the engineer. Thank you.
Because from what I know, you have to, if you're an engineer contractor, you have to stamp it. So that's what I want to know.
How you doing, City Council? Sorry, I've been sitting here a long time, so I'm kind of
stiff.
Not ready to speak, but I'll do it. So I've been involved with this since 2007. I was the contractor and engineer originally. I met with Rob Russell and Mike Stone, who used to work for the city. Great people, known them for years. I used to work for the city of Monterey for 10 years. I knew Mike from at that time. Anyway, we discussed this whole URM back then. We inspected the building, and they said clearly there's no need to do this because there's an interior bearing wall that no one's talking about that's inside there that's bearing that the trusses are bearing on. There's a foundation. It's reinforced with cross bracing like a timber trestle bridge, and no one wants to look at that. But we did back then. Then all of a sudden in 2012, you got a new guy named Dennis Richardson coming along who wanted to tear the building down. And I was like saying, well, why aren't you looking at this wall? He wouldn't even go in there and inspect it. And I think he's the guy that made the determination. I can't even, the city hasn't been able to tell me who made the determination that it's a URM, because that was done in 2013, but who did that? They're neglecting the fact that there's a bearing wall there. So that's all I'm gonna say. So I was, like Mr. Lane said, I was forced in a very short period of time to come up with an analysis to do a steel structure that could support the building because, again, they failed to recognize that bearing wall. So anything else?
I think they have questions.
Okay, sorry. Yes, any more? So this is the contractor working on that.
Can I stand here? Anyway, my name is Sal DiMaggio. I've done several retrofits. Actually, I did the first one in Monterey right after the '89 earthquake, and I did the Cabana Hotel in Palo Alto. So I did crawl around those attics, and the trusses aren't even touching that brick wall. They have their own bearing wall. Each truss has an 8x8 post that comes from the foundation all the way up to the bottom of that truss. And we did pull the permits and started work, and we can keep that building safe if he wants to open up. Great. And so nobody would get hurt. And every page has a signed signature on Mike Martin's stamp. So I don't know what this guy was looking at. Every page is signed.
And all of that is true. Mike Martin did sign and stamp all of the plans for the structural retrofit. He did not ever do a structural analysis of the building as it exists, including a structural analysis of the wall that he claims is bearing. And he had testified to that under penalty of perjury in his deposition, which is included as part of the record.
The structural analysis right here.
Including the retrofit, including the steel poles.
You have to go out to existing and the new part. Get past the city.
Well, so sure, and those plans are approved.
No, that's
Yes, I'm going to ask Mr. DeSante and the fire marshal to please come up. Gentlemen, if you could please sit down because we're just throwing mud at each other. We need to resolve this issue and we don't have much time. Mr. DeSante, we're looking for some kind of compromise, safety compromise. This is a great addition to our city, and I'm sure there's people that are depending on their income because of that building. What is it that we can do where the residents that go in there can be safe? I mean, we're hearing about give me several more months or whatever. So what is it that we can do to resolve this issue? Mr. DeSante.
The question, I'll answer that, but we need to remember.
We have 5 minutes.
Acting as a board of appeals, you are to take the information that's been provided and provide a response to this. What I say has zero basis on the request for appeal. So I'll provide an answer, but I just want to clarify, this isn't council. This is acting on behalf of the Community Development Building Department, verifying whether an improper action was done by myself, Senior Code Enforcement Officer, and Fire Marshal is incorrect. And if it is, what's that? On this date, that's what it is. But I just wanted to make that the statement.
And I understand that. I'm trying to resolve these issues.
Part is, we are required to enforce D- construction. D- egress, D- accessibility, D- painting, you name it, the code only requires D- construction. In that code, it says there's notice and orders, and there is a way and a process for somebody who is not meeting the code minimums to be put on a timeline and abate the building. For me, I cannot pull a number out or compromise safety. As Anthony Lane stated, originally, the original timeline that the previous building official gave was 30 days. Once I became building official, as he stated, I did not think that was fair, as all the other 182 buildings that have gone through this exact same process needed to follow. There was no reason Mr. Lane, if he, and I took his word for it, that he did not know that there was brick in that building, should be held to a higher standard than anybody else. That standard is the ordinance I referenced. That standard is what everybody else had to follow. The language that he was given is copy and pasted from that ordinance. If more time was requested, it should have been requested between 2013 and February 6th, 2018. We are having this conversation 5.5 years too late. I have always been flexible. I am flexible. Development is important in this town. We need to do what is right. That is to keep buildings open. That is to keep people safe. We shouldn't be having this conversation 5.5 years after the first order was done. If there was an issue with the order, it could have been appealed back then. These had 5.5 years. I'm not disagreeing with the loss of revenue. I do not want to be standing up here having this conversation in front of you, in front of everybody here. But things happen, and if something happened, who is going to stand behind me when there is a dead person? Nobody. Myself, code enforcement, and fire marshal are responsible. I gave him 5 years. 5 years, exactly. 5 years. 5.5. 5 years to address this. He has had 5 years to do a seismic analysis of the wall. I don't disagree with his engineer's reasoning. I cannot approve a conversation. I need numbers to show, in fact, that that wall is a bearing wall, not that. We have asked for that many times. I hijacked your time, I'm sorry, but I have been working for 5 years to try to get this addressed.
Well, for someone that
don't
didn't
want
want
to
to get
do it.
involved, you did well. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry for your time.
Mr. Martin, if you step up real quick, please. We talked about this stamp, this elusive stamp. Quickly, thank you. Can we, or are you able to stamp, as that building is now, that it is that wall is safe?
Yes.
You would put your stamp on
Yes.
that. This letter right here dated April 16, 2018 was a declaration from you. At the bottom it says, in conclusion, my professional opinion that the heavy timber-bearing wall carries the truss loads of the Fox Theater, not the adjacent masonry wall of the central building. Is that something, Mr. DeSante, that if he stamps that, is that acceptable to the building? Or is it you need an actual seismic?
What needs to be done is, a letter isn't sufficient. There needs to be supporting documentation showing how he came to that conclusion. That is the missing
He
part.
prepares that paperwork. He says that it's safe right now. If he prepares that paperwork and he stamps it, you're okay with
I have
it.
been asking for that, and I just haven't received it.
The answer is
That's all
yes?
I'm looking for, yes.
So you can complete that paperwork that he's asking for, not with the retrofit that you're going to do or plan to do that the permit was pulled on, but what's existing there now. You put your license on the line, stamp it, and saying it's safe.
Well, I'd have to know what code we're going under. If it's going to be 2016, no, it wouldn't, because of the safety factors and things have changed and
DeSante, what
stresses.
code are they going to be going by?
Well, I think, council member, that's something that Mr. DeSante should have the benefit of being able to look up and consult the guides that he needs
So
to
whatever
consult.
code it is, obviously if it's the code that's recent, it probably isn't because that's old. It's an old building.
It may very well be the code, the 1995 building code. It may not be the 1997 building code. It may not be, but I think we probably shouldn't put Mr. DeSante on the spot and should allow him to consult the appropriate resources before he answers that question. However, that's right in Mr. DeSante's wheelhouse, and once he has a chance to consult the appropriate resources, he
Understood.
can
Thank you.
provide that.
Can I add one thing? So since they are building
I don't think there's a question pending.
Okay. But they are building the structure that was designed to take the new loads. And that's going to be probably completed within 30 days. I don't see why Mr. Lane has to be out of business for 30 days when it's a safe building. It's been safe for 97 years.
So it sounded like Mr. Lane today even said that he wants to do this. He wants till October. I don't think this council wants to shut down the Fox Theater or tear it down. I kind of like looking at it when I walk down Main Street. And I get what's before this council today, but how can we work with Mr. Lane? If he's going to fix this until October, and he wants until October to do it, is there a way that this council or that the City of Salinas can work with Mr. Lane so that he can actually keep his doors open, that the engineer says the building is safe now? I mean, it's been through the Loma Prieta earthquake and several others. Hasn't fallen down yet.
So there is no way that this council can make the deadline extensions. There is a way that the city can make the deadline extensions, and the city has been working diligently with Mr. Lane.
Okay, we're here to solve problems, Mr.
Despite normal reticence on his part. The other issue is, these are, I forget what they are, roughly 60 pictures of code violations, most of which are caused, or many of which are caused by substandard construction that was entirely unpermitted. The Fox Theater is not closed.
Okay.
Is not closed. So there were some electrical things that were signed off. There were.
Signed off this morning, all of them, 75 items.
Mr. Lane.
So that's not true. There were a number of items that are not signed off.
Mr. DeSante, are those items all signed off on Mr. Lane suggesting that they are?
The electrical permit that was issued, let me back up. An inspection was conducted, and it was found that there was work completed without permit within the Fox Theater.
Patty?
That work created electrical hazards that needed to be addressed immediately. A permit was issued to remedy those immediate hazards only, to safe that work that was done without permit. That's the electrical permit in question.
Thank you.
Additionally, there was work that is currently in for plan review to correct the work done without permit. That's what these questions refer to. And if I may, the question you asked about answers. I don't know if I am allowed to say this, but denial of the appeal extends the date till June 11th. Ask Mr. Martin how long it would take him to do the seismic analysis of that wall.
Thank you.
If he can get it to us before June 11th, the issue is addressed.
Thank you. It's my turn. So, you must stay up here for a minute. So, and I was going to ask that question, you answered it for me. If Mr. Martin goes in, does the analysis, presents it in the proper form, and has it to you by June the 11th, we've resolved the issue.
Partially.
Partially. For this issue alone.
On the URM issue, that's
On
really
the
not part of it.
URM
That's
issue,
not
that
part
is
of
the
this
only
question.
item
Yes.
that is before this panel tonight. We're not here about the electrical, we're not here about anything else, only that one issue. Mr. Martin?
By then, the steel structure will be completed, so it's moot to do that. In other words, they're in process right now of building the steel structure that they wanted. It was approved. So
No, you've said a lot, and I've had to listen, so it's my turn to ask some questions, so I can get the answers I need. So I'm just making sure that we have two choices. We can abate the building, which I don't think anybody up here wants to do. They don't have that glint in their eye. There's some others they would like to. But if they deny the appeal, you have till June the 11th to come forth with the plans that it would take to lift this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we have the opportunity to go to the public, and we're going to offer the public, and that doesn't include you, 2 minutes per speaker. So,
I get to do this again. Okay, my name's John Gay, long resident of Salinas. I do volunteer work as far as photography goes. Been close to 12 years that I've been going to the Fox Theater taking photographs of the different performers and the crowd that's there. My key issue is you shut this down, you're taking something away from the community. You're taking those laughing at comedian shows. You're taking those kids that are surprised at Christmas events, okay? You're taking discount prices for charity organizations that do events there, and in some cases, no fees whatsoever, okay? And he's paying the staff out of his own pocket, all right? These are things that make the Fox Theater part of this community, not just its age. He is part of the community, and what he's doing for the community should be a positive thing. Let's help him get this thing settled. Let's get him back into business. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Lena Mesa. I have been a resident
Pull the
here.
mic down a little bit so we can hear you.
No, sure.
Thank you.
A resident here for almost 60 years. I have known Mr. Lane for, I would say, over 40 years. And I have patroned his quality entertainment associations many times, whether it be County Row, Planet Gemini on Fremont, or here in Salinas. We need people like Anthony Lane. We need good quality entertainment, someplace for young people, people of all ages to go. So I am supporting this man, his staff, who are give quality service, and I thank you for the time to listen to us little people.
Thank you.
Mayor Gunter, at City Council, my name's Connie Rains, and I am a lifelong resident of Salinas. I remember Main Street when First Awakenings was the brass rail, and when Ariel was Brown's department store, and there's so many more over there. Montgomery Ward's was the old Bruins building. That dates me, I know, but anyway, and there was the El Rey and the Fox. And it saddens me to see the way the El Rey looks right now, and it warms my heart to see the way the Fox is right now. And it's a beautiful building, and it's an architectural jewel in the middle of Old Town. And I I'd like to see it continue because it's a really special place. The other thing I'd like to say about Mr. Lane is that he supports our youth. We have music schools that do their music programs there, dance recitals there, and he's always very generous. He either charges nothing or very little. He opens the door for us, but he also gives us his staff. So the kids have this great opportunity to, you know, feel professional with his sound system, with his lighting, with everything. And I am only one of many in the educational field that say thanks to him and hope that it does stay open for their sake. Thank you.
Good evening. Been a long day. My name's Al Espinola, and I've been a long-time resident of Salinas. I do not know Mr. Lane or any of those associated with him. But I can tell you that Salinas is always in need of a venue for entertainment. So anything that you can do as the panel to work with Mr. Lane to let it stay open, get fixed what needs to be fixed to make it compliant, I think would be to the advantage of all of Salinas. So I think this is an opportunity. You say you support business, then let's support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Hello, my name is Mae Green Smith, and I do not know everyone here, but I know back in 1946 when my dad came here, Fox was there and the other theater is there, but I feel like to invest in our community would be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mae.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Council members. My name is Pat Newman. I'm a resident of Memphis, Tennessee. And I originally came here just to support the Fox Theater. But having sat here through the proceedings, two things came to mind. First, I don't need to tell you the business it brings into town, out-of-town people, they stay at hotels. I think you all know that, basic economics. Money comes in from outside the city. It supports all the programs, all the fiscal responsibilities that Mr. Corpus deals with on a regular basis. I have blood pressure medicine, if you'd like, I'll give it to you. Having said that, if you weren't confused at the beginning of this, you sure might have been by the end. And I'm glad that Mayor Gunter clarified that what they need is that June 11th. And to hear permits that are stamped, that someone reports are not stamped, to have official documents whited out, just raised the hair on the back of my neck. So other people have asked you to do the right thing. I know Councilmember Davis, he mentioned that his grandmother or great-grandmother was on Meals on Wheels and she wouldn't have been attended to. Well, the building's almost 100 years old. It takes a little time, a little patience. I look at the artwork you have on the wall. It says Salinas, rich in land and rich in values. How about adding rich in heritage and not brushing out that skyline with the Fox Theater? I'd like to come in and see rich in heritage up there. So I know you all do the right thing. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason Martinez. I'm a local business owner, about 15 years, graphic design. I created the logo design for the Fox Theater, which has gone on to win international awards, published in different books around the world in different languages. So people know the Fox Theater is a landmark, not just in Salinas, way beyond Salinas. We're talking printed in Japan, all over the world. And I can tell you that walking by it ever since I was a little kid, looking up at it, it was always something to look at and something we've always been proud of. I don't think anyone imagines it not being there, is what I'm trying to say. And not only does it have a historical reference for everyone that's been there throughout the years, but it also speaks to a whole new generation of kids. My daughter's 5 years old. She's performed on that stage with myself. I also am a musician. I play in a band who's headlined the Fox Theater at one point with my daughter on the stage with me, who's 5 years old. I'm about to go to London, go perform in Paris, France, but it all began at the Fox Theater. This August, I'll be going overseas to perform, bringing my daughter and my wife with me. But I can tell you that the Fox Theater represents a lot to a lot of people. And it's not just about a building. It's about the memories, the timeless memories that'll carry on from now and for the rest of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no one else, we're going to bring it back.
Sorry. I just want to thank all of you, and Mayor and Councilman.
You have 2 minutes.
I know.
And
I just want to say,
probably shouldn't even allow you to talk, but I'm going to, so we can move on.
the situation is this: to do the plans that they want, and I know we're going to have a hiccup, so I don't want to play games anymore. To do the plans is going to cost me $30,000 to $50,000 because I know what they're looking for a structural analysis. We've already started breaking concrete yesterday. I've spent $7,000 on the permit. We're already into this about 15 grand as of yesterday morning. So all I'm asking is, give me till June 11th. I'd like June 30th. I'm not even going to ask for October. Give me till June 11th or even the 30th. I'll complete the wall, but at least let me open like all the other URM buildings so I can extend myself to the schools and graduations this month and not get sued by another 20 more promoters for not doing their shows. That's all I'm asking for. So if you can't rule for that, then deny the appeal, because I'm not going to let them tear down my building. But I will build that wall by the 11th or the 30th, if you could at least give me that, so I don't endanger my workers working around the clock to complete that wall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bring it back to council for final comments on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to deny the appeal.
Second.
And I think that is probably the only time in this community that you will ever hear someone say, build that wall. Thank you.
If the maker of the motion would accept a friendly amendment to allow the applicant until October.
I don't believe that that's allowed under the code.
It's not allowed under this appeals process. It would be something you'd have to bring back.
Would it be allowed to ask that that be agendized for the next council meeting? I'm asking the city attorney.
Right there, he's looking at you.
So I don't believe that that's something that's within the purview of the city council. I think that would be something that staff would have to do. You could agendize a resolution. It would, of course, be a non-binding resolution because the safety lies in the community. The safety issues lie within the discretion of the community development department and the building official. Nonetheless, I don't think you can agendize it as you're sitting as the Board of Appeal right now, because you are not sitting as the city council.
I see.
You are sitting
Council
as the Board
comments
of
or
Appeal.
something else.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's my understanding that the council cannot make an extension, but the building official can if he so deems it appropriate, correct?
The building official can make an extension, and my understanding in all my discussions, and he is here, well, I guess the staff can, because the senior code enforcement official is part of this. You know, if you look at this,
hey, hang on. Everybody else gets a chance, so
We can't, not to be rude, but I don't believe we can reopen the hearing.
I'm not asking to reopen.
This is council comments only.
Understood. He's responding to my question.
the building official and the senior code enforcement official did extend the deadline. That's what happened with the notice in order to
Understood. Okay.
appealed.
Thank you. So my final comment on this is you are not the only soul who has had issues with unreinforced masonry walls in Salinas. I would note that the structural analysis and structural engineer with the stamp of approval also occurred with our Dick Bruin building, also occurred with 201 Main Street. Those are prime examples where, you know, we had some pretty disastrous things going on. I think this council is highly motivated to keep you open for business. That being said, there are certain things that we have to abide by the law on. And so it's my understanding that June 11th is our deadline that we have to give. So that is the deadline that it's my understanding that we can approve for tonight by denying the appeal, but that there can be further discussion with staff if added time needs to occur. Thank you.
Mr. Mr. Villegas?
I think that, the building was given 5 years to get it fixed. I think that, by denying the appeal and giving it until June 11th, it was open for 5 years. It should be allowed open till June 11th. We're talking about another month and a half, less than that. So Mr. Lane can continue with his business and, like he said, not get sued by any more promoters, because I know you probably have contracts signed. I don't know, we can't provide that. That has to come from Mr. DeSante, but I would urge city building to look at that and please, try and do whatever you can to allow Mr. Lane to keep the building open during the next month and a half. We've allowed it to be open for the last 5 years. Why not another month and a half? Thank you.
Yeah, I support the motion, and I would put it to the city manager to make this a high priority project within the community development department. Whether it be signing off for electrical, the stage, whether it be the fire sprinkler system, anything that's remaining. As I understand it today, there were appointments that Mr. Lane had contractors waiting for an inspection, and the inspectors showed up, but it was hours into the inspection. The costs and the burdens for this individual and for this project are high. So I think this council has signaled that there's strong support for not just preserving the structure, but getting his doors back open with the business he's already lost. So making it an extremely high priority to work with our very enthusiastic and passionate owner of this property. I don't think anybody would deny that. So put this behind us, deny it, and take whatever course we need to prioritize reopening the doors ASAP. Enough said.
Councilmember Barrera, any comments?
Well, I want to commend Mr. DeSante, Fire Marshal, and your staff. I mean, I've learned firsthand you have a lot of integrity in your commitment to serve the public. There's been a lot of issues with this situation, and I know that there's a lot of people here that depend maybe on their livelihood or what have you, but I'm glad government worked today for the good of the community. And Mr. DeSante, whatever you can do, whether it's a priority, I know you're busy on a lot of priorities, but I hope that we take care of this and just do a good work for our community. Thank you.
Councilwoman De La Rosa, any comment?
Yeah, let's go ahead and work together and let it happen. Like I said, you have pastors here, you have community members that use your facility, and we heard all the good things that you do for them. So again, let's move forward, and I'm denying the appeal so that you have that done. Okay?
Mr. Lane and to Joey both, I want you both to understand this. After you get the engineers sign off and you get the paperwork done and you legally open, I'm hoping that we don't end up with an issue of safety because of, and I understand the nature of you needing to make business and need to have these folks in here and a lot of young people. So that is my concern. And I think that should be our number one priority, is the safety of the community. Opening this building in a rush to make people happy is okay, and I appreciate that. I don't think anybody up here ever had a desire to tear the Fox Theater down. As you can see, we can't get rid of the Dick Bruin building. I don't even think we could even start on the Fox Theater. So, City Clerk, we're going to call for a vote on this matter.
So a yes
Point of
vote
order.
is a denial. Correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Calling for the vote on this item, Council Member and Appeals Board Member Barrera.
Aye.
Council Member and Appeals Board Member Craig.
Yes.
Council Member and Appeals Board Member Davis.
Yes.
Council Member and Appeals Board Member De La Rosa.
Aye.
Council Member and Appeals Board Member McShane.
Yes.
Council Member and Appeal Boards Member Villegas.
Yes.
Mayor Gunter, and Appeals Chair.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Motion passes.
Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen.